Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you are new. I am the stepson of Krypton,
And I am Mantis.
and today we kind of have a little bit of an interesting one for you here. Kevin Feige made some comments about will we ever see an MCU and DCU crossover event, and excited by the idea behind that, we thought we'd do a video on it. So, Mantis, are you ready?
Yes.
A little bit of a pause, but it's okay. Awkward pause is your thing. So, all right, let's get into it. All right, guys. So recently, Kevin Feige was talking about and expressed personal excitement, is what he was quoted or how they quoted it, of saying of an MCU and DCU crossover. I'm obviously excited about the idea of potentially doing that, but also then acknowledge that there would be some challenges that come along with it. And I know for me, being a comic book fan, I have read the comics of where Marvel and DC team up, and I think they're awesome. Hate me for it if you will, because you guys are probably going to anyway. But I love when they actually do the team ups because we are a DC channel, but we have expressed how much we do also love Marvel, right? You can be both, right? It's not a one or the other kind of thing. So I think we've seen a lot of bringing all the Spider-Mans and the previous Spider-Mans. We've seen bring in the previous Batmans with Michael Keaton. We've seen a lot of this nostalgic that have worked really well. I think bringing Marvel and DCU characters together would absolutely fucking send fans over the edge. Like they would love it. Mantis, what do you think?
I agree with you. I think most, especially, well, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, probably like most of the audience would enjoy that. Um, especially if it's the more popular ones, that's kind of where it would be weird. Like, if I was a director or writing some of this stuff, I would feel a little bit hesitant about putting some of my main go tos in that crossover. Um, but I mean, because we've talked before about even within crossovers inside of like DCU, because he brought up Flashpoint several times and crossovers in like just focus on like WB or CW. The crossover episodes that you sometimes see that they do, they're notorious for it. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but those episodes usually do really well. I would assume as well, that a movie would of a crossover between DC and Marvel would probably do real well. There's like you said, or like Kevin Feige said, there's a lot of challenges that come with that. One being that
I said it too.
they are, yeah, they're completely two different properties. That it's not like they hate each other because it's their companies. Like they're just in it to make money, and I think if they would make assloads of money, they would probably be open to it. Where the challenges come, I think, would be the writing aspect of it. Is DC is gonna want Superman to have so many minutes in the movie, and Marvel's gonna want this person to have this many minutes, and they can't die, or this person can't do that. It gets real weird. I think it would get real kind of strange in that aspect.
Well, so I think the interesting thing here is, and what kind of gives me hope. Obviously, it's going to be a long ways off, right? DC is in the process of rebooting the entire universe, where Marvel is kind of doing the same thing. They're not doing a complete reboot, but we're seeing the new Fantastic Four getting ready to come in. There's the X-Men reboot talks because they've kind of ended things on that front. So we are kind of starting to see like maybe what I would say is a soft reboot of the Marvel universe. So is like at some point once you start getting a little establishment, could you potentially have a crossover? And you have the perfect bridge because you have James Gunn, who has led several Marvel projects and DC projects to kind of help be that bridging of the gap between the two companies, between the two universes from Marvel to DC. So I feel like you've got a pretty great in because he kind of understands the vision and what both both companies and both studios are looking for, right? Or where they're going right now, because he's obviously leading the reboot for the DC, and he's worked on several of the projects and with several of the actors for the MCU.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
he's that bridge.
I mean, it could be. It makes sense, but I would agree that would be the best option, probably. Um, Again, I think this all comes down to money and control. And like you said, it's a far way off. I mean, even Feige said that. He's like, what was his? His quote specifically was, I don't know when, or don't know when the heck that would happen, right? Like, it's because I read the article and the interview that he did. I think it was with Collider or whatever. And it was like, the question almost caught him off guard to an extent. So I get people's reaction to reading it, and because he was very upbeat about it, and I think he probably like expressed the same feelings that most people had. Like, that would be cool. He's like, I thought about it. I think about that all the time. We've seen some Marvel crossovers, not in different superhero spaces, but of course, there's the Marvel versus Capcom fighting games. That I've played, and they're a blast. There's been crossovers in video games like that before. Being able to, again, that's the whole thing, is being able to see those different characters on different sides of the spectrum kind of interact, whether that be fighting each other or working together to fight a common enemy, or something like that is the next level. I think, like you said, if they were able to pull it off, it would make so much fucking money, I think, that it would be stupid.
Well, and I think that's a fair point. Obviously, that's what all of them are doing this for, is to make shit tons of money, like in-game level money, right? Billions, breaking box office record. I don't care who you are. We're doing it for a shitload of money.
Shitload of money.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a shitload of money.
I don't care who you are. Like, you could say, well, Avatar still holds the record. Avatar's been theatrically released like 18 times now, right? And that's an exaggeration. Don't go count them up and say, no, it's not. It's been this. No, I'm just saying that exaggerated. But it's been released a lot, right? So I don't count that. Titanic stayed, which it fairly beat Titanic, but that stayed in theaters almost a year. It was like 9-10 months. Okay, Endgame was in theaters for like not even 2 months. Okay, but regardless, they're still grossing over the 2B mark. So that's kind of where you want to get to. That's kind of where they're hoping Deadpool Wolverine's going to get to here. So. But we've seen when, kind of in-house fighting, you've had where, Marvel did not own the rights to Spider-Man. So Sony and Marvel kind of came to a deal to allow Spider-Man to be in the third Captain America movie. And look what it did. It did a shit ton of money. Why? Everybody loved seeing Spider-Man go up against Cap, because they're both good, and they weren't trying to hurt each other. Interestingly enough, the Captain America of the DC realm, and I say that just being the virtuous, the good, the beacon of good, Superman. That was the first comic where in 1976 where they crossed over, was Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man. So it's funny that we talk about the first time we got to see Spider-Man intermingle in the MCU was where he kind of first thing he did was go up against Captain America. Well, in the comics, first thing they do is they put him up against Superman, which is completely different. I love Cap. He's my favorite Marvel character, but Spider-Man is more powerful than him. He's just not battle hardened like Cap was, so he didn't stand a chance. Versus Spider-Man holds no chance against Superman if he really wanted to.
Well, and look at, even just in Spider-Man alone, the recent, where they brought in Tobey Maguire and Garfield and God, the most recent guy,
Tom Holland.
I can't think of his name right now. Tom Holland. Yeah.
And to be fair, they did not bring in Garfield. They brought in Andrew Garfield, not the actual orange cat that is voiced by Chris Pratt.
Yes, pasta is my paint, and the dinner plate my canvas.
Now,
yeah, and that movie did really well. I think everyone, and again, they brought in the villains as well. But I think people kind of they gravitated towards that. I mean, for different reasons on that, and that maybe specifically because of the nostalgia aspect with Tobey Maguire. But I think again, the ability for that to come together in a film or a trilogy or something like that would be a lot of money would be made. I just don't see it happening for various reasons, but maybe one is just because they don't want to relinquish control of the main characters in their arsenal, I guess you could call it. Unless what we don't know is maybe there's some background company that owns both of them or ends up buying
BlackRock.
Yeah, BlackRock ends up owning them, then they will. I don't know. But
well, it'd be interesting to know, like, so what would you do, right? Would you bring that out as a crossover where they are all good and they're helping each other? Because I feel like that might kind of unite fans, like the diehard Marvel that don't like DC and the diehard DC that don't like Marvel, kind of help unite them? Or do you fuel the rivalry and you put them against each other, right? So it's kind of because, and I'm going to piss off a lot of Marvel fans.
You really pissed me off.
But if you've got Superman in the movie, you can't make it them going up against any one of the other ones, going up against Marvel, because they're done. They're gonna lose. All right, Superman proved that in his own movie, going up against the rest of the Justice League, and put him down in all of like 3 seconds. Right, like there's nothing you're gonna do. So be mad. Comment down below if you think that's completely ridiculous, because I don't care, because that's my belief. And I'm entitled to my belief. But Superman he's going to manhandle the Justice League. He's going to manhandle the Avengers. It doesn't fucking matter. But I feel like if you could bring them together in like a positive aspect, right? Now,
yeah, they'd have to team up, I think, would be the only way, one that it would ever get greenlit,
So in 2003, they did a JLA versus Avengers, right? Now, what it was is basically the way they played it off in the comic was that the Avengers were kind of like, they weren't called the Justice League, they were still the Avengers, but basically they were the heroes of Earth 2 at that time, and they were brought over to compete in not a battle against each other, but it was a game where they were put against each other. Kind of a brief synopsis. Let us know down in the comments. I will do a whole video on just all of that if you want it, but I don't want to bore you guys with all the details. But they were put against each other in a competition, right? Could be something like that, again, to where there is still some rivalry, but it's not a, hey, we got to fight each other kind of thing. It is more like almost like scavenger hunty, kind of a race kind of a thing, and not one that the Flash is going to easily win. But it could be something like that, or like I said, maybe there's a intergalactic, multi-universal threat that maybe they all have to come. Maybe you're going to see
that
a
would
DC
be interesting
character.
To me.
Maybe you see a DC character pop in for Secret Wars. That wasn't.
Well, I was gonna say if you're gonna do like the coming together and teaming up, I think it would be interesting to see if they created someone completely new as the villain. Like, I want to see if he did it. That's what I would want. I don't want him to pick some DC or Marvel baddie. I would just want someone. I would want someone new, like a new villain.
See, that's an interesting take, right? Because they've played around with some, but for the most part, honestly, they are taking characters that have been, created, whether it be relatively new in the comics or older, but actually going and doing your own thing, making something new. That's interesting, because I feel like everybody is either not imaginative enough, or they're too scared. And I think that's kind of what needs to happen, right? We need something new. But to be fair, and we've seen it from our channel, what it is, you're going to have people that they hate new, right? So they're going to immediately find things to just shred about it. Like, just, oh, this is terrible. So it's like, there goes that fear of creating something new, because so many people just they look for reasons to hate on things with little to no reason
New's
behind it.
easy. That's the thing. New is easy because no one can tell you fucked the timeline or you screwed up canon. Like none of it matters. Like because there's no history of this character. You can do whatever you want. Like I don't know. To me, it makes sense. You know, that's kind of why I'm just kind of off on a tangent here, but like because it's nothing to do with this crossover. But there hasn't been any newer superheroes that are cool that they've kind of ran with, and I want new. I want some fresh blood. And if it happens to be as a baddie in a crossover, that's fucking cool.
I'm gonna say this is gonna piss some people off here.
You said that already!
But that seems to be the theme of this episode. So, but like you look at like The Boys, right? And I know it's a comic, guys. I know it is comic. They made the show from the comic and all that stuff. But The Boys, and I get it's supposed to be satire, it's supposed to be parody and all that stuff. But there are so many, even when they try to create their own stuff, that basically mirror like Superman and like you've got Omni-Man, you've got all these different characters that are created, but they are literally clones of Superman. And you're going to have people say that, right? Well, you just clone this character because at this point, how do you make a new character with powers that aren't going to resemble some already created character, right? So you're going to have hate. You're going to have people say that, oh, well, you just basically copied this character. So I feel like where we're at in a society nowadays, like you're almost in that, like it's a no-win scenario. People are always going to be pissed off because apparently people just want to be pissed. They can't enjoy the art form that was once comics and then came to animated and now is in the small and big screen.
There's also the small problem of that kind of music was running into, I think, is like there's only 8 notes in music.
I said 7. 7's the key number here. Think about it. Right. 7's 11s. Yeah. 7 dwarfs. 7, man. That's the number.
And there's only so many melodies that you can make before things start repeating. Or sounding like they're repeating. So you kind of run into that with comic book heroes. Like, we'll make a guy that he can take on the appearance of anyone else and he can fly, but he has to recharge with this. And it's like, oh, well, that's already been done because this guy over here is back in one comic from 1973 did it right. It's like you get into these things that have already been done minutely in some off weird universe type thing, right? Like it, but I think it's okay to explore, if you have to borrow some powers from here or there, like no one wants to see a superhero that's a baseball player that has a super bat that's got little bugs on it that when you hit it, they fly off and wipe the person's face. Actually, that sounds kind of cool now. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
We're doing it. All right. We will make this character. My thing is, I'm with you. I would like to see something brand new, like a new villain. A villain, definitely, because villain has so much more possibilities where you could go with it from origins and everything else. Plus, we kind of need some villains. I know DC has some great ones, but we need some good villains. Something that's going to like almost kind of like maybe make you feel for the villain or side with the villain. We need some really good villains. We do need some new superheroes too. I don't care if you want to borrow powers from this because there's only a limited amount of powers, right? And as long as comics have been going on, you're going to start having to borrow and reuse some and all this. And then the combination of powers that one character has. So I'm not worried about that, right? But if you come up with it, and we've talked about this many, many times on the channel, guys, final thoughts here. Is if you make a good, compelling story.
Guilty as charged with the stories.
Right? We will need a backstory for this character for the most part. But if you do a good story and you have depth to the character and the writing's great and you bring in the great musical scores when you need it to really kind of offset like those intense moments and stuff, I don't care what you do with the powers. I really don't. Like, I love the character Homelander, even though he is literally a knockoff of Superman, right? Why? Because Anthony Starr is amazing in that role. The character and just all as you learn, and we continue to through season 4, learn his backstory is amazing, and it's great. Love it. I don't care that he's literally. I mean, he's in the same fucking colors as Superman and all the same. I don't care because the character is so great, and Anthony Starr, like how he hasn't won an award for that now, I don't know.
What made you think I would ever allow a cripple into the 7? For fuck's sakes, Ashley, don't look at him, look at me. Ashley, look at me.
Well, I mean, he like you said before, like those characters are supposed to be copies of.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm just saying it doesn't bother me, right?
No, yeah, and I mean, I think too, like if in a crossover event, I completely agree with you. Like, pick whoever you want to do the crossover and this that. I don't think people will really care as long as the story. If the movie's good, I don't think it really matters. You know.
I could see the problem is you're not going to bring Superman into a crossover event and not have him be the star, right? Like, you know, you're talking about like how many minutes are they going to get, this, that, and other. It's too hard because Superman and Batman are two of your most iconic superheroes. Through Superman, for sure, he is the foundation of superheroes. You know, like that they won't outshine anybody you put them up against, even regardless of whether you're a Marvel fan, just because of how big of a name they are. Like, you know, even if you go back into the 80s and you said Superman, Batman, people know who you're talking about. Most people wouldn't have known who the fuck Iron Man was, right, if you just said that. So I think maybe starting with some of your B-listers and having that crossover and test the waters. Yep. And then if it works, then you move into a, you know, Justice League and Avengers type of movie. But you got to be very careful.
Like, it's safe that way, because if it bombs, then who gives a shit, right? Like, you know, who cares?
Yeah. But they're still tie-in because they're little individual storylines. Then they need to get more help, right? They need to get the powerhouses of both the MCU and the DCU. Or, you know, a fucking Galactus or somebody shows up because he's been in those comics as well too. You know, like I feel like that you could do and it work. Because even in the comics, there's been a Darkseid versus Galactus.
Ready the Armada. We will use the old ways.
Who must face the World Eater known as Galactus?
Right. So they've had that. Which one of my top favorite villains in the MCU versus one of my top favorite villains in the DC. Like, I say MCU, you know what I mean? The Marvel universe would be awesome.
Well, like you said, there's been plenty of crossovers previously in the comics. There's plenty of stories and canon for this as well. So, you know, even if they didn't want to write anything new, there's still good stuff out there for it. I think, in my opinion, it's not. There's too much red tape. There's too much bitching. Like, they can barely get stuff done without, like, I'm just using as an example the new Captain America movie they filmed. Like, it's how many times they have to reshoot it. Like, it's just crazy. There's no way it would ever get done. The movie would never come out.
It'd be in limbo for 9 years, and hey, it'd give us a lot to discuss over the course of the channel if we're alive by then. When it decides to come out. But guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. So let us know down in the comments, how do you feel? Would you be excited for a Marvel versus DC or I say versus, but a Marvel and DC crossover event? Would you want them to fight against each other? Do you completely hate me for saying that I think Superman would just basically wipe the floor with all of them? I'm good with that. But would you be excited to see some of that? Would you want to see them team up or be against each other? Because I think that'd be really interesting to know.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, if you have made it with us this far, we apologize. Tangents are our thing here. You just got to kind of deal with it if you're a fan of the channel or if you're new. But regardless of either of those, consider giving this video a like if you have made it with us this far. He's going to show you where, right at his crotch. Right. Subscribing to the channel so you can hear more of our insanity and our rants that we go off on. And then clicking the bell notification.
I would like to point out, I was pointing at my keyboard, by the way.
Oh, see, I pushed my keyboard back so I could have my booze there, but it's out. So I'd have to do like this. But clicking the little bell notification so you do get alerted to when we put new videos out, and you can hear more of our craziness and join in on the discussion. So, Mantis, do you have anything else?
No, I think it would be an awesome thing. People cannot agree on anything, so it's never going to happen.
Why is it in every aspect of life? I'm saying this at the very end, so if you've already dropped off by now, we got through all the important stuff. But why is it in every aspect of our life is everything got to be two sides? Like, why can't we all just be together, man? Like,
I know.
Everything is
human
coming
nature,
down to
man.
the sides. It is, man.
It's human nature. It is. It's stupid. It's dumb.
Like, let's just all be together. Let's all just love comics and love superheroes and stuff like that. We don't have to be divided. We don't have to be divided. It can be a great thing. One studio has everybody.
Yeah, one studio to rule them all, you know.
Touche. Touche. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, we will see you then.
Later.